This video is brought to you by John Robson Guitar Tuition. If you enjoy the content, please consider supporting the channel by enrolling on a course, purchasing some guitar lessons or a t-shirt, or you can join my Patreon. Now, on with the show. Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, I do hope you're well. Well, it's that time of year again, and I've done a couple of videos where I've been looking back over the last 12 months. And I also like to kind of round about this particular season. I like to do a video where I'm kind of not talking about predictions, but things that I would like to see happening in 2023. Over the next 12 months, I did a similar video to this last year, and absolutely, none of the things that that were on my wish list came true, but we can live in hope. So here are 5 things that I'm going to hope happen in 2023, starting with
Marshall Tone Master amps.
Yes, Marshall Tone Master amps. What do I mean by that? Well, Marshall don't make an amp called the Tone Master, to the best of my knowledge, but Fender do. And what they are, as I'm sure you're aware, is they take classic, vintage and, kind of iconic valve or tube amplifiers that Fender used to make and still do make, and have, essentially built their company's amplifier reputation on. And they've digitally recreated them to a stunning degree of accuracy. When you're getting, people like Rhett Shull, who knows a thing or two about great tone, and, Phil McKnight, and all of the people whose opinions you usually respect on such matters, saying that these Fender Tone Master Princetons and Tone Master Twins and stuff are every bit as good as, their back-breakingly heavy, old-school tube valve kind of technology brethren, then, you start taking notice. And certainly I've seen many a YouTube video where, they're putting the valve amps and the modern digital amps side by side. And well, my ears can't tell the difference, let's put it that way. I think that is something that I'd like to see the whole kind of movement of digital modelling going, rather than producing an amplifier that can produce 12 different variations on, all kinds of classic amps. Let's just do one, get it dialed in as one amp and do it absolutely perfectly and stunningly well. And I love the Marshall sound. And, I use a Marshall DSL-1 most of the time. There it is there. That's my main source of guitar tones. But it would be nice to have a version of that amp that isn't reliant upon, say, consumable components like valves. So you just buy it and that's it, and it sounds great and it responds like a valve amp, and it's always going to be there, and it's never going to go wrong. If Marshall could get into that game the same way Fender have done, that would be something I would be very, very interested in seeing. Next.
Epiphone Greeny Moore.
Yes, now if you are a fan of Joe Bonamassa, or Slash for that matter, then, two iconic Gibson users, there are no shortage of guitars that you can buy with the Epiphone brand that look and perhaps kind of sound and behave a lot like the guitar that your idol Slash or Joe Bonamassa, and plenty of other Gibson users as well. You can buy an Epiphone version of their guitars, and given that Gibson have just recently done like a ridiculously expensive limited edition run of what's a Custom Shop or Murphy Lab or something, recreations of the original Greeny Moore. There it is there, so called because it was originally owned by Peter Green of Fleetwood Mac, and then Gary Moore had it for many years, and it's now in the hands of Kirk Hammett. And what I love about that, by the way, is the fact that Kirk isn't just kind of keeping it in a glass case and, with spotlights on it and a little engraved plaque. He's actually taking it out and using it on the road and, playing it. It's a musical instrument. So Gibson have just done a limited edition run of accurate recreations of that guitar. And I would like to think that at some point they'll do an Epiphone run of them. In the same way as they did with that Joe Bonamassa Lazarus guitar, for example. And, I'm not usually a fan of relic guitars, but you know me and my penchant for Gary Moore and Peter Green. If they brought that out with the Epiphone brand, even though it is a relic guitar, I might be tempted. In fact, I think I probably would be, because it'd just be too tempting not to. So yes, come on, Epiphone, Gibson, whoever's in charge of such things, get your finger out and do a Greenie Moore for us. I'll buy one. Next.
Fender lace sensor pickups.
Yes. Now, do you remember the 1990s? I do. I remember the 1980s and the 1970s and the 1960s. Anyway, back in the 1990s, if you bought anything over and above a Fender American Standard Stratocaster, then it was going to be either a Strat Plus or a Strat Plus Deluxe or something. Basically, if we take a look at that guitar there, those pickups that are in it look like EMGs, don't they? But they're not. They are lace sensor pickups. Now, lace sensor pickups were made by a company called Lace Sensor, I think owned by a chap called Don Lace. And he managed to get this deal with Fender where all of their sort of higher-end guitars, the Eric Clapton signature model, even the Hank Marvin signature model, had lace sensor pickups. And I was reminded just how fantastic these pickups were recently when a student turned up with, I think it was a Strat Plus or Strat Plus Deluxe from the mid-90s with those pickups in it, and plugged it into the little Marshall, and it absolutely sang. It had all that kind of plummy, stratty sweetness to it, but it had lots of power on tap as well. You used to get different sort of flavours of lace sensor pickups. You can still get them, by the way, but you have to kind of hunt them down. I don't know why there was apparently a falling out between Fender and the company that made lace sensors, but I'm gathering there must have been, because suddenly they weren't being used on Fender guitars anymore. And I think it's a real shame, because I think it was a match made in heaven. But you used to get different flavours of lace sensors. There was the blue one, which had kind of a... It was sort of a humbucker sound, but you could still tell it was kind of single coil like. These pickups were very unique in a good way. Then there was the red one, which was kind of quite a hot rock, kind of almost like a Hot Rails kind of sound, but still a little bit more single coil sounding. There was the gold ones, which I can't remember what their flavour was, more of a vintage kind of tone. I think the Eric Clapton signature had the silver lace sensors in it, and that mid boost. They were fantastic pickups, and it would be really good if Fender would start, when they're doing all of these kind of reissues of guitars of yesteryear. You know, the 90s is, you know, in the 80s they were doing 60s reissues. You know, so that was 2 decades before. So I think possibly now it's time that they started, you know, doing 90s reissues, you know, of some great guitars they were making back then, and those guitars had these lace sensor pickups in them. You know, just whatever the difference of opinion was, or the falling out was between Fender and lace sensor, you know, kind of an olive branch. You know, it's been long enough now, but, you know, kind of kiss and make up and start putting those pickups back into some of the great guitars or reissues of them, like the Strat Ultra, for example, that you used to make back in the 90s. Again, I might be tempted to buy one if you did. Next.
Satin finishes as an option.
Yeah, now I've always said that gloss or satin finish on a guitar isn't really a deal breaker for me either way. But the older I get, the more I'm erring towards satin finishes. My signature guitar has a satin finish. My favourite, my number 2 guitar, here it is over here. This is the guitar in the silver medal podium. This is my PRS S2 Standard 24. My Les Paul Tribute has a satin finish. I'm just getting more and more into the idea of satin finishes. I was probably one of the things that I was a little bit disappointed about on that Sire Larry Carlton H7 guitar that I love as a guitar, but it's the S7. The Strat version of the Strat range in the Sire Larry Carlton range has a satin finish neck. The L7, the Les Paul one, has a satin finish neck. The T7, the Telecaster variant, has a satin finish neck. Why is the H7 the one that is, you know, presumably the one that Larry Carlton himself, the 335 style guitar, why is that the one that always has a gloss finish on it? And it was just a little bit of a disappointment. That sort of brought it home to me that I think I am preferring satin finishes to gloss finishes these days. And, you get guitars with a whole range of different finish options. For instance, on the Fender Player Series Strats and Tellys, if you want to have like a flame top on it, then you can pay a little bit extra and have that finish option. I would like to see one of the options that is listed on, across different manufacturers, different ranges of guitars, is that you can opt for a satin finish. In the same way as you can kind of opt for a knackered looking relic finish on many guitars. And sometimes that is the only way that you'll actually get that sort of satin finish, which, I'd rather have it just a nice new looking guitar, with the exception of the Epiphone Greenie Mower aside, but with a satin finish. It's something that's becoming more and more of a thing for me as I get older, and I would like to see that being a development that comes along sooner or later, hopefully in the next 12 months. Next.
Republish and update the Guitar Handbook.
Yes, the Guitar Handbook. Let's have a look at it. I think, is that the right button? There it is. This is a book that I first encountered in about 1984 with this very edition here that you see here. It was just on the shelves in the college library, and I wasn't going to music college or anything. I went to study electronics, but in the college library there was a copy of this book, and I absolutely dived on it and devoured it. And I remember going down to the college kind of admin offices and getting pages from this photocopied, because it was so useful. It's kind of like a phone book, kind of phone book sort of size, like a telephone directory. And it is just a wealth of information about guitar, electric guitar, the history of the guitar, its developments, the history of different companies, Fender, Gibson, Rickenbacker, kind of little mini profiles of all of the important figures in the development of the guitar, whether that was Leo Fender or Steve Vai or Robert Fripp, just everything, just loads and loads of useful information there, including pretty much every chord shape you're ever going to need, every scale pattern you're ever going to need. And, all right, this was the 80s, and there was advice on, home recording, 80s style, which wouldn't be very relevant today, obviously, but there was, it was updated in the early 90s, and I had a copy of that book for years, and then it went, I lent it out to somebody and never got it back, and it's out of print now. So the Guitar Handbook by Ralph Denyer, some publishing company must own the rights to it, and even if they only release it electronically as a PDF, then that'd do me, because, chuck it on me Kindle, and, that would be, that would be good enough. You don't have to go through if the market isn't necessarily there for it anymore as, a physical paper printed copy that's obviously going to cost more. Just somebody who, please, if anybody watching this knows who owns the rights, the publishing rights to that book, let's kind of try and get it moving so that it can be updated for, how to use a DAW, for example, in the modern age, that sort of thing, amp plugins, effects plugins. Let's include all of that sort of stuff in it and just republish it, even if it is only as a PDF. I would love to see that happen in 2023 or at some point. So there you go, folks. There are 5 things that I'm hoping to see, not very hopeful, well, wishing to see, but not being very hopeful, happening in 2023. Let me know what, if you have a wish list of things that you'd like to see coming in the next 12 months, then leave them down in the comments section below. And that is pretty much it for today, folks. Hope you've enjoyed the video and found it relatively entertaining. And if that's the case, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already done so. And why not leave me a like while you're at it. And that is, as I say, it for today. So I'll just take this opportunity to say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time. Look after yourselves, folks. Stay well, stay safe, and above all, stay sane. Bye for now.